Welcome to Obsidian TTRPG-tutorials.com. Let's learn how to use the tool. Alright, g'day guys, and welcome back tonight to another Obsidian video. Tonight we're diving into the brand new Insider release. For anyone who doesn't know what the Insider is, it's a special program where you can basically purchase a Catalyst license for about 25 USD. It may change depending on where you are in the world, but 25 USD gets you access to Insider content. All right, so early access to beta versions. So tonight, that's what we're talking about. This is not available for everyone at this point. But if you would like to get access to what we're about to show you, you can go over to obsidian.md/pricing and you can sign up. So, why am I excited? What is this? Well, for a while now, there's been something on the change log, or at least something on the roadmap, right, that we could see coming. There's always been this thing in the active thing. It wasn't called bases at the time. It was called dynamic views or dynamic tables. And basically, it was create dynamic tables using data stored in note properties. So we've known that Obsidian had wanted to do this for a while. And we've all been trying to guess, what is this? Is it a replacement for Dataview? Is it a replacement for database folders? Like, what were they trying to achieve? Well, the wait is over. It dropped today. And here's a bit of a sneak peek at it. So basically, from what we can tell, from the screenshot, it's basically the ability to have dynamic tables in a note, right? They've added this new base note functionality, all right, which lets you create a table. It's very easy to use, that dynamically updates to show you a list of things that meet your requirements. So for anyone who remembers database table, it's very similar to database table from what I can tell, all right? I'm seeing very similar functionality. Except it's also got some similarities to Dataview. All right, it's a little bit of both. And we're going to dive into it today and show you a little bit of that. All right, but just a heads up that it's out there. So this new release is there. And, well, let's just jump in and show you because it's pretty damn cool. I'm really enjoying it. Okay, so here we are in my Patreon vault. For any of my Patreons who may be watching this video, just a heads up, I have released the new Patreon vault with all the new templates, and what you're going to see tonight in this video is all part of that release. Except 2 hours after I released the Patreon vault with the new templates, Obsidian basically hot dropped this update, which has kind of left me going, oh no, now I've got to update everything. All right, so you're going to see some stuff tonight that if you want to get access to it, we've still got the old stuff over there, but yeah, you'll see. All right, so I'm in the new Patreon vault, right? I've got the tabs going on, and I've got a whole bunch of Dataview queries. For anyone who's followed me for a while, you'd be familiar with the fact that I like to, on my front page, have a series of Dataview queries that basically show me, like, these are the last 10 NPCs that you modified, or these are the last 10 notes that you modified, or locations that you modified, just as honestly something to put into the home note to make it look cool. I don't actually use these very much myself, but conceptually I like the idea. So I've got a bunch of Dataview queries. All right, I've got a party tab here with a list of all my party characters. I've got my session journal ones, and this is all done using Dataview. Now, Dataview, for anyone not playing at home, let's go into here. Let's just show you a Dataview query, right? So this is a Dataview query here that basically says, show me a table with these columns from this folder where these rules are true. I want you to limit it to 10, and I want you to sort it. And, when you render that, that gives you a list of the last 10 modified, in this case, people and groups. All right, and that's great functionality. We've been using Dataview for years. But let's have a look at this new functionality, all right? Because here's something I prepared earlier. Let's go to the Home tab. All right, so here we go. Bases. This is the new base. All right, and this is one here that I got for party members. We've got basically a view here that says this is the party member view. And then I've basically set some filters up. All right, so if we come over here on the right, we can see we've got filters. And in filters, we can actually come in here and define some filters. And I think one thing that's pretty cool about this is there's an all views filter and a this views filter. What does that mean? Well, have a look at the recently modified. I got playing around with it tonight. Where Dataview used to be like one table with one query, right? And you'd basically you'd hard code these things into your notes and you'd set these things up. Well, check this out. With bases, we don't need to do that anymore. We can just create new views that basically give you the menu up the top here. And then you can click on these buttons and you can have predefined rules that are unique to each view. All right, so if we go back to my recently modified all, it's showing me the last 10 items that are modified. If we go over to filters, you can see that I don't really have any filters because I'm asking it to show me, just show me the last 10 notes, show me what you've got. And then here in properties, you can actually come along and you can turn on whatever you want. And the cool thing about this is you can actually type the name of the properties up here, right? So any properties that exist in your notes, right? So if I come here, Obsidian UI mode, let's add that into this view. We'll come to recently modified. All right, so if we come to properties, we go Obsidian UI mode, and we enable that. We now have that property in our note, and that's obviously pulling from everything. To add to this though, check this out. We can update them. At least we're meant to be able to. It looks like enter didn't work there actually. It was tab instead of enter actually sent that through. So we can update them though, right? Like you can come in here and you can see it's automatically pulling from the options that are available inside of these things as well. Now it's worth mentioning here that I think this is working on the same method that you see inside of a note, right? You know when you go to a note and you've got properties in that note up the top and you come here and you click it and it shows you the last options that have been used in that note. I've got a feeling that this method here where it's basically pre-populating is using that same method. All right, it's not got any rules associated with it. I got to admit, that would be something that I'd really like to see here. All right, I think that would be very powerful if we could actually maybe right click on one of these and actually go, let's define some rules for the options that actually are displayed here. I don't know if it's a direction they'd want to go, right? They're happy with the way their properties are working. But I feel that would be super powerful, super powerful. It might not be required, to be honest, but I feel like there's going to be things that are missing, that if you haven't used that option previously in the properties, it's not going to display that as an option perhaps, unless you type it. I'm sure if you type in template, yeah, it'll just basically bring up everything. No, it's not actually. So in this case here, it's not displaying me all options. Right, you can see what it's actually doing. If I go template-player, it's not showing that option, right? So it's as I suspected, I think. Ooh, I really want to press enter when I finish typing that, but it's not. It's tab. All right, so yeah, that is a thing. Let's not put a link in there. So you know, there's probably some teething issues that we'd need to work through there. But for the most part, really simple and easy to use. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's jump in and let's show you how to actually create one of these things. All right, so out of the box, the easiest way to create one of these things is actually just right click on a folder, I think, and go new base. That creates these new file types, which are called bases. All right, and anyone who's familiar with Canvas, all right, they've done something similar before where you can have a canvas file type inside of your vault, right? So they're expanding on the idea of just having MD files. So if we go back to the base, it starts off as a table that basically shows me, from what I can tell, everything in my vault. Okay. Now from there, what we can do is we will probably start up the top here is where I like to start. And we've got a table called table. So if we expand this out, we go configure view. All right, we can actually change the name. So maybe in this case here, I'm going to say, I'm going to make a hubs view. All right, it's a layout table. Now we have heard there's more layout types coming, right? I'm expecting lists, right? Will probably come next. I think they're going to replicate very much what Dataview has. All right, and here you can see we can actually limit the number of results. So I might turn around and say, I just want to see 10 results. All right, there we go. So now we have 10 results, and the view is called hubs. All right, so nice and easy. Now we've got one column name here, one column called name. Now we can right click that and go name. So we can go hub name, for example. Very, very easy. If we actually then right click, you can see there's some other options. So there's sorting. All right, so nice and easy to use. And there's the ability to hide the column. All right, so that's basically a very simple query, right? We haven't done anything really complex. Now, if we come over here to the right, we can see some more options. You can see filters, and this is where it starts to get really, really powerful. Now, I want to show hubs, all right? Down here on the left-hand side, I've got a folder. It's in my 2-world hubs folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have a look here, and I want just this view, just hubs view, all right? Where property, and I'm going to go folder contains, or let's go is, and we're going to go 2-world / hubs. All right, there we go. Filtered. We now have the city of trade. All right, and if we come down here, we can see in 2-world hubs, city of trade. That's the only note that I have there. If I click new, and I go to create new, and I go new hub, city of thieves. Now we come back. All right, we can see it's already updated. All right, it's really snappy, really quick. Something I'm really impressed with, just how reactive this thing is. All right, so we've made a filter. Now there's some other filters in here as well. So you can have all the following are true, any of the following are true, or none of the following are true. So if we go any of the following are true, and we add a filter, so we'll go, let's show a folder is, and we're going to go 2-world / places. All right, shop of sales is now there as well. All right, so it's very, very easy for us to set this up. Now there's filter groups here as well. All right, so you can play around with filter groups. There's also the all views. Now the idea there is we actually come over here and we go add view, and I'm going to go, let's go places. All right, we make a places view. Now we have a hubs view and a places view. And these are both two unique views. I really like this. All right, because if we go to places and we come to filters and we go this view where folder is, and we're going to go 2-world / places. All right, do we have any places? We should see shop of sales. So I've probably got something wrong here. 2-world / places. Why is that not working? Oh, there we go. So the folder had a weird icon on it. So maybe we just found a little bug there. The folder kind of like bugged out a bit and didn't pick it up. That's interesting. All right, but regardless, we now have places. Have we really broken this? We have. Places and hubs. There we go. Interesting. I'm not going to edit that out of the video, just in case anyone from the dev team wants to come and see this. That was funky. I'm not sure what happened there. All right, but anyway, that's what a view is. All right, it allows you to have multiple different, what is effectively a single Dataview query, right? But multiple of them in a single note. And if we come over to my home page, you can see where I've really put this to use is I've got this drop down now that says, right, show me the last 10 hubs, show me the people, show me the groups. I can have this drop down that lets me pick which view I want to see, and they're all basically linked to all these different custom views. Like, it's just insanely powerful. I really like that. All right, so that's a view, and that's how to set up a filter. There's obviously some different filters here, and probably where I was going before is you can add this all views filter, right? So that will apply to all the views in this grouping, where this view just applies to this view. All right, so properties. How do we add more information to our table? You just literally come over here and you press properties and you go, all right, show me the folder, the created time, the modified time. All right, we can add all that. These are added by default. But what we can also do up here is actually search. All right, so if I type in I've got my category and my container. All right, and then we can just drag these things. All right, so my container's there. I'm going to expand that out a bit. My container is now there. All right, we can expand that out. There we go. How easy was that? All right, so much easier than writing a Dataview query. Let's be completely honest. I had a few questions on whether or not you can preview these things. Yes, you can. All right, just note that as of now, you need to hold control to preview, right? Because it's not part of the core plugin yet. All right, so if we go into core plugin and we show page preview, this is the default out of the box plugin that affects these sort of things. I'll be looking in here to see where it pops up in here, because this is where it requires control to trigger page preview on hover. All right, so we're going to basically have to change that setting, I imagine, that allows us to just hover over. For now, you just have to hold control. All right, so that's how we add properties. That's how we add existing properties from a note. Worth also noticing there's an add property button. All right, so my property. All right, and then we can actually add formulas. Now, I have not played extensively with formulas yet. All right, I say yet because I'm sure it is coming. If we have a look though, there is a help guide already. So help.obsidian.md/bases. It's got an introduction to bases. All right, and then it's got some instructions on how to use it. Like with anything, guys, and I know you're not going to listen to me, but you should. Go and read this stuff because it's got some good stuff. Now, in here, there's functions, right? So I haven't played with this much yet, and I'm watching the community closely to see what they make. This sort of stuff here is going to be super powerful. Okay, they've added in all sorts of functions, and the ability to have formulas in your notes, right? Is concatenating, right? There's going to be all sorts that we can do. I highly recommend you come over and actually have a read of this, right? If you'd really like to understand what this can do. All right, so that's how you add that. Now we can actually just come in here if we want to get rid of that property and just untick it. All right. I am curious though. That's a formula property, so I don't think that is actually adding it to here. No, it's not. So it's not adding it to the note. It's going to be like a calculated formula that it adds something. So I imagine what we could potentially do is have two properties, right? Like one that contains one and one contains another one, and you could have this one that says equals this property that plus that property, which equals 2, right? So I reckon that's where we could really see this going, and who knows what we could do with that. It's a fascinating concept. All right, but that's a basic table. I haven't even played with this yet. What happens up here? Nothing too extraordinary. Live testing. Haven't done this. Let's see what happens. Can we drag one into a base? Into a canvas. Yes, we can. That's pretty cool. Can we have 2 of them? Yes, we can. We can change them. They are fully functional, right? You can actually use these within Canvas. So look, that is very easy. Very, very easy. All right, let's do something silly. Let's try a drawing for Excalibur. What happens if we try and drag this in here? Nothing yet. And I don't expect this to work, if I'm completely honest, right? Like, I do not expect this to work. Oh, good old Excalibur. Look at that. Pretty much functional, right? Like, it doesn't look like I can modify a lot of it. Right, but it is an embeddable. So, yeah, okay. It's already functional inside of Excalibur to an extent. One thing we're going to need to do, guys, is give the plugin developers and the theme developers time to update all of this, right? Because this has just dropped like a couple of hours, well, not a couple of hours, a day ago at this point, nearly a day. But yeah, I think like give it a bit of time. This is going to really be quite powerful, and they're going to really flex it. Now, just a message on that. If I go to the roadmap, just to talk through some of this. So this is what's coming to Bases. So Bases API for plugins to add more power through custom functions and new view types. That's what I'm interested in, right? So once these plugin developers have had time with this and they get their hands on the API, they're going to be able to interact with it. More view types beyond tables. So lists, cards, etc. All right, I think cards will be a big one. I've been looking for capability to add images. I haven't found it yet. The fact that they're working on cards, though, tells me like it's going to be here eventually, right? They'll have to figure out a way to put images on it, because that's absolutely what people are going to want to do with it. I imagine, people will have their book databases, right? That'll show an image of each book, and they're going to want to do that. Grouping of files, I really like that idea, right? Maybe we don't even need to have a different view for every type. We could actually just have a grouping that hopefully expands out. And then aggregation function, right? So sum, average, so we'll be able to do basic maths in it. Now, this last one is super, super exciting. Obsidian publish support, okay? A lot of us have managed to find a way to get Dataview to work on Obsidian publish with a bit of a hack. But if they're going to put native support for this in, oh, that's going to be lovely. I will be using that. All right, so there we go. That's Bases, right? Or at least that's what it looks like. Now, I just want to let you know that I don't know if I'm going to use this method very much, okay? And just to expand on that, what I'm talking about, this idea that the base is a separate file, okay? Like it certainly can be. I'll need to put an enter there. Right? You can basically just drag it into another note, just like I did there. And it works, all right? It works seamlessly. Like the buttons are working, the properties are working, you can change views. So that does work very seamlessly. I just don't know if I like the idea of having a separate file for my bases, all right? Because it kind of creates like this compartment issue where I've got like part of the note over here and part of the note over there. What I really want is just to have all that note together. Well, here's the good news, guys. You absolutely can. Now, I'm just going to make a new note here and show you how easy this is. So, we do our ticks, our code block ticks, you know the ones, and we type base. All right, so literally just like you're starting a Dataview query, except instead of writing Dataview, you're writing base. All right, and look at that. We now have a base inside of the note. All right, just like we had before. We can modify this. We can configure the view to say show me 10. All right, we can put a filter on here that says let's go tags. There we go. What's a tag that I'm using? I don't use tags very often. Tags category dash group contains category. Does that work? Putting in all views, wasn't I? Tags contains category. Oh, I just want that in there. Doesn't want me to do it, does it? There we go. All right, so there we go. I've just made it so it's basically a filter just on tags, right? And that's just to show you that that's possible. All right, there's different options in there. I just, let you know that that's a way. Now we'll just turn on some stuff just so it looks pretty. All right. And basically though, what this is doing is it's writing it in the note. As you just saw, right? If I click the source button now, so we can edit the block, we can actually see as I make changes to it, it's writing that code into here. Now, I think this is super powerful, all right? Because with Dataview, new user comes along, they're like, oh, you guys are doing some amazing stuff with Dataview. How do I write these things? And we're like, oh, you've got to learn. You've got to go away and practice, right? Because Unless you've like grown up around SQL and you understand like just query-based languages for working with data, it can be a little bit of a challenging topic for people. But you don't need to worry, right? I don't need to know how to write this the way they've set it up, because I can just come in here, make my changes, and it just modifies it in real time into there. Now the cool thing about that, excuse me, is I can just create another one. All right, it's that easy to basically copy and paste these things all over the place. Now, I've been playing with this for a few hours, so I thought it's worth probably showing you some of the bigger things that I've made with it so far. I've made this embed page, which is part of my home tab, right? So my home now has this recently modified table. So what we're doing is we're looking at the home embed note, which contains this, that I'm then sucking into my home. And I did that just so I can keep the bottom clear so people can use it. But basically down here, I've made this big one, okay? And this is really, right, it's got all sorts of different views going on. And each one of those views sort of like has its own filtering for that view. All right, then I've turned on the properties. Now, I could have gone through and actually like added each one of these individually, right? Like make a view, set the view up, make a view, set the view up, that sort of thing. I'm lazy though. So what I did is I made one basically, and then I came in here and I just basically figured out how this works. All right, so it's views, and then the limit for me is the bottom section. All right, so you can see the dash type. All right, dash type. So if you come in here and you start from dash type down to the next dash type, that's like a section. That's one view. All right. So if we break this down, all right, we've got a name, and you can literally just change this to change that name. The order of things, all right, this is the columns that are basically there. The column sizes, right, so it's actually defining how wide these columns are. The sort, you know, how is it sorted, and then a limit, all right. Now down here I've got a more complex one, okay, so this one here's got a filters, an and filter where the folder equals to-world-regions. So what I figured out is that I could just copy these things, right? If I come down to the bottom and I add this in here and paste it, all right, my new view, all right, and I can change this. Let's go to groups. All right, if we come back now, cut down, we got my new view. All right, and I can click that and it goes straight into that thing. All right, so that's how easy it is to actually modify these things. Now, I didn't need to use any sort of, you know, website or wizard to do this. I literally just basically set one up the way I wanted, then went into source mode, copied it, and went straight through, and off I go. All right, so that's really, really lovely. Really, really lovely. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all that's worth showing you for tonight, right? This is a sneak peek. This is going to change, okay? This is not the final solution. It's not released yet, all right? So you don't get this with your normal Obsidian. If you'd like to get it, go and purchase Obsidian Insider. I personally love getting access to try new things, and it also gives you access to a chat channel where you can actually interact with the devs on the day one releases, right? And be like, hey, I found a bug, or hey, I'd like this feature to do this, and they come back with their feedback and let us know if they're doing anything about it sometimes. So anyway, super powerful though. This, for me, is one of the most exciting updates we've seen come out of the Obsidian team in quite a while. Long time coming, I think. I think they've been working on this, just basically cooking it in the back end, making sure it was right. It feels clean, it's smooth, it's so quick, right? Much quicker from what I can tell than Dataview, right? Because we used to always, you know, on a big note, you'd press go and Dataview would sometimes take a bit of time to update. This feels very, very quick. And, you know, for us TTRPG players, I think there's some really cool stuff we could do here. Right, so show me grass dwelling monsters, for example, that are between the level of 1 and 5. I've seen people already, like they're figuring out filters that show you, you know, query based stuff. So like show me between these values for a property, for example, and that's going to be super powerful. As I said earlier, I think like it's very early. Where this goes next could be absolutely fascinating. I think we just have to basically all sit back and watch what the plugin developers do with it. I don't think it's going to replace Dataview. All right, not completely. Dataview JS is so powerful. All right, the ability to dynamically write things that convert into other type of plugins. Like we have Dataview JS writing metabind queries that dynamically create new things, right? Like, well, even if you think about, let's have a look at a template person, for example. So this is part of my new templates for the Patreon Vault. I've got the dynamic relationships, right? Where you can actually come down here and be like, oh, Bob and Fred are now children, right? We now get in here Bob and Fred and children, right? So that's dynamically updating a mermaid chart. Now, that's Dataview JS doing that, okay? That's Dataview JS that's writing the mermaid, right, in the back end of the note and then been picked up by Obsidian and passing it. That's super complex stuff. Now, I don't see this heading in that direction. It's not trying to compete with that. There's also been no indication yet that they're doing any sort of inline stuff. Okay, so I haven't seen like the ability to pull a value just into your notes, which is obviously something very commonly done by the TTRPG community. Whether you're using Dataview or Metabind, my personal preference is Metabind. I don't see any of that yet. So I don't know if they're going to go in that direction. I don't know if they need to go in that direction either. Right? We've got solutions for that. What I think this is really, really nice for, it's going to replace Dataview tables and lists for the large part. I love that it's dynamic. I love that I can write and modify the results. So it's a complete replacement for database folder, all right, which we'd stopped recommending because it just hadn't been updated in so long. It was getting buggy. This is a full replacement for that. Yeah, absolutely amazing option. Really keen to see images, right? Like I should be able to pull up a really nice image, and maybe like image cards is going to be where that really comes in. I think that will be a really strong contender. I'd kind of like to see them add a property type for images, right? I feel like that's kind of missing, right? There's always people who go out of their way to put an image in the property and then pull that image down into their notes somehow. Like I feel like that's a gap. So maybe if they add an image property to there, you could automatically pull that image down into here and it just shows it, right? With a setting somewhere perhaps that doesn't need to be hard coded in. Maybe you right click and you like set image size, for example. I think that'd be cool. And also like this here, like the ability to select the options. I do feel that's an area where I'm going to find some gaps, right? As in, by that what I mean is like, I've got a lot of options that are in my vault that should be available here when I press these things, but have never been used in the vault, so therefore they're not in the cache, so therefore this view doesn't know about it potentially. Right? I think that's how it's working. I'd kind of like to be able to right click on a category and actually say, hey, here's some custom rules for what I'd like you to show when I click on this. All right, so maybe it's like a category. I could write an actual query that says pick from these options, or ideally select this folder and pick options from that folder, right? So maybe I could have a folder of items and I have a property in my player notes that says these are the items owned by the players, and then I can come in here and just like click in here and go, oh, these are the items the player knows, and have it pick those items from the notes, right? Where an item is a note. All right. So I don't know. That would be cool, maybe. So anyway, look, I'm just basically chatting here. This is me just showing you new functionality. So hopefully this is enjoyable for you. We'll leave it there, right? Like I think we all need to give this time to basically cook a bit more. Although from what I've seen so far, it's really working really well outside of the box. So I'm just super excited to see what they can do with it next. So anyway, super massive shout out to all of my Patreons. Everything you've seen tonight is the new Patreon vault. I haven't updated it with the new stuff yet, okay? And that's simply because if I do and you don't have access to Insider, it's going to break everything for you. So I think I'll sit on that for a bit longer. But just heads up, if anyone does want this, right, I have released it for the patrons. So go along and check out the GitHub and you'll be able to get a new copy. Outside of that, though, thanks everyone for your support. Thanks for watching. Loving the community. You guys are amazing. And I will speak to you on the socials. Enjoy.